Why is it so hard to be consistent and to actually do the things that you decided to do? Is it just the way we're put together? I guess it must be something psychological. And if you too have that problem, it's pretty clear that you're not alone. I mean, the internet or any bookstore is full of advice on how to reach your goals, whether it is to lose weight or to gain wealth. There is plenty of advice for anyone who wants it. So how come it's still so hard? Well, for one thing, if it was easy, it wouldn't really be worth anything, and we certainly wouldn't talk much about it. If you don't know me from before, my name is Jonas, and I recently started this channel to learn a bit about YouTube, to brush up on my video making skills, and possibly learn some unrelated skills as I go along. I'm interested in a variety of things, like photography, exercise, cooking, gardening, home improvement, and learning how to play the guitar. I know I should find my niche. Maybe I will someday. In December, I set out on a 14-week fitness journey, and in this video I'll talk about how it hasn't gone exactly according to plan so far, this time either. How tendinitis made it a pain to train for the CrossFit Open, and how my competition aspirations didn't move me towards my real goals. I'll also talk about why I've decided to extend my fitness journey for a bit longer. So, to recap my little fitness journey, a few months ago I decided that I wanted to step up my efforts to become healthier. After having become a little heavier each year for quite a few years, I decided it was time to actually start today on the thing that I would normally start, tomorrow. I decided to get into better shape by exercising more intentionally and by eating better food, particularly eating less bad food. I started out by doing a Tanita body scan, and I got a workout plan, one that would lock in on my specific goals. I also quit alcohol, well, more or less, and I try to cut back on the sugary stuff. I decided to record part of the process, and I called the project my fitness journey. It was supposed to last 14 weeks and end with me crushing it in the CrossFit Open. Or, well, at least doing better than last year. Okay, so I had several goals for my journey. And honestly, the first and simplest goal was to lose some belly fat. I was going to say that the goal was to lose weight, but that's really not it. I wanted a flatter tummy, I admit it. But I don't care what the scale says, as long as I look like I'm in better shape. The plan for achieving the goal of a flatter tummy was mostly to cut out alcohol and sugary snacks, particularly the ice cream that had become a staple evening indulgence. You probably know it already, but training by itself is probably not going to make you lose weight. First of all, you have to train a lot to burn just a small number of calories, and then after you train, you will be hungrier than you would have been if you didn't train. So unless you restrict your diet somehow, it's unlikely that you will lose much weight. That being said, exercise is still extremely good for you. It has a number of health benefits that you could never get in any other way. For now, let's just say exercise makes you both healthier and happier. And back to the goals. The other goal was to become fitter, as in stronger with more endurance. And I thought, what better way to test this than to participate in this year's CrossFit Open. I can compare my results to last year's results, and I know if I improved. I would also do another Tanita scan at the end of my journey in order to compare the results before and after. Okay, so flatter tummy and a stronger body. But the overall goal of the project was to be happier, as I hoped that fitness and health along with a fun YouTube project would boost my general well-being, and thus my level of happiness should increase. I've also heard that exercise in and of itself will generally make you happier than no exercise, and I was also hoping that healthier food habits and leaner body would lead to better sleep, which would lead to better healing, possibly making some of the pain I've been having lately to go away. So again, the overall goal is to be happier by exercising and improving my health, and by trying to incorporate other happiness-promoting elements into my life, like socializing and spending time in nature. So how has it gone so far? Well, there are some wins and some disappointments. Before my last video, I had already managed, without too much trouble, to significantly cut down on my alcohol intake, particularly those evening glasses of wine that I had gotten accustomed to over the years. More or less every night I felt the urge to have 1 or 2 glasses of wine after dinner, as to reward myself for getting through the day. I suppose it was a relatively easy way to get a sense of silver lining at the end of the day. But as we all know, alcohol is not good for the body, and probably not for the soul either, especially not if you drink it almost every day. So in October, I finally decided to cut down, drastically. No alcohol for at least a month. And even though it was slightly uncomfortable for the first few days, it was actually pretty easy. So easy that I stayed off the wine, more or less. It's something that I thought about for quite a while, and cutting down this much feels like a significant win. The drawback to cutting down on the wine, as it turned out, was that I seemed to replace the wine with ice cream or other unhealthy snacks. Even though I thought ice cream might be better than alcohol, it still wasn't quite consistent with my goals. But it was really hard not to treat myself in the evenings. I would get restless and feel unsatisfied unless I got to reward myself with some yummy and, I guess, dopamine-boosting treat in the evening. So I've been eating unhealthy snacks in the evening, and I've probably been eating a bit more than I need in general as well. Even before I started this project, I had been working out more or less consistently for several years. Now I started using the training program I got from Coach Trude, mostly concentrating on my upper body. I had this idea that working on my arm strength, my biggest weakness as I saw it, would increase my chances of doing well in the CrossFit Open. I also have this secret dream to be able to do a muscle up at some point. So 2 days a week I trained my upper body and my arms, and the third day I did cardio. All this to prepare for the Open. I was also doing stretching exercises with the hope to get rid of the pain I was having, especially in my arms and shoulders, but also in my Achilles tendons and my lower back. Now the thing that happened during this period was that quite suddenly I started feeling much more tired and out of breath than I had before. A few months prior, I had felt like the training was going pretty well. I felt quite strong and healthy. And suddenly, I felt my stamina was getting much worse. And I was generally feeling more tired the rest of the time as well.
Allihopa, kom igen nu! Under 3 minutter igjen, kom igjen nå! Nei, du stopper ikke der, Jonas, du må gå tilbake, kom igjen!
As we were getting into the Open period, this tiredness and lack of stamina made me cut out almost all training, not because I thought it was a great idea not to train, but because I didn't have the energy to. So during the 3 weeks that the CrossFit Open was going on, the only exercise I did were the actual Open workouts. After each of the Open heats, my body would feel quite broken for most of the next week, and then it was time for the next heat. I felt like there was little to gain from adding any workouts during that time. The question is, of course, whether it was a good idea to go through with the Open at all, since I wasn't really feeling well. I'm actually not sure. It's a known fact that when you've invested in something, it's hard to let it go. Sunk cost, I think they call it in business. Maybe it was a little bit like that for me with the CrossFit Open. Maybe I should have just skipped the whole thing and instead kept training in a softer way, a way that would better promote healing and allow me to stay somewhat consistent. But on the other hand, there is this psychological aspect to it as well, about persevering and sticking with it until the end, to do what you decided to do. The satisfaction of finishing what you started, how much is that worth in pain? How much pain? And for how long? Hard to say. On the one hand, I am satisfied that I went through the Open. On the other hand, my arms are still hurting quite badly, several weeks after the CrossFit Open ended. I think I'm mostly happy that I went through the Open, but at the same time, I kinda question my own sensibility on that one. So how do I feel about my progress so far? Well, not great, to be honest. It could be worse for sure, but it could certainly be better as well. But isn't that how it usually is though? And I do feel that the setbacks are not entirely my fault. I mean, I know I could have been more disciplined with both food and the training, but the pain and the fatigue, that just felt like bad luck. But then again, I suppose I could have chosen a wiser way to deal with those problems instead of trying to push through something that didn't really work anyway. There are also some challenges in judging the results of my efforts, at least when it comes to my athletic goals. I mean, when you're just another medium-trained, middle-aged amateur trying to work on your fitness, what should you compare yourself to? What's an objective measurement of my efforts and results? In the beginning of my fitness journey, I did a Cindy, a benchmark workout that I plan to repeat at the end to track my progression. But now my arms hurt too much to do Cindy, so that will have to wait. And I have my result from the CrossFit Open to compare to last year's result. I suppose that's the most objective and quantifiable result that I have. I'll get back to that in a minute. Oh, and the Tanita? Well, since I don't really feel like I made any significant progression, I want to wait to do another Tanita. And so, the goal of becoming happier, how can I measure that? Is the way I feel at the moment a good measurement? If I feel happy and strong, have I had success? And if I feel sad and weak, then have I failed? And what about all the other things in life that affect these things? Family situation, work, the weather, whether I've been sick, aging. Anyways, I feel pretty happy. But it's also spring in Norway. Spring always makes me happy. As to the goal of achieving a flatter abdomen, I admit defeat for now. The thing is though, that as I was getting closer to the Open, I started thinking that it would be counterproductive to cut down on the food, as I was afraid that would take away from the effects of my training. I admit that it might have just been a sad excuse to allow myself to keep eating whenever I felt hungry. So, I did the CrossFit Open. It was supposed to be the end to this particular fitness journey where I could, hopefully, show that I've been successful in my training and improved my results from last year. First, let me tell you about the workouts. The first workout was to do as many rounds as possible in 15 minutes of lateral burpees over dumbbell hang clean to overhead with 50 pounds or 22.5 kilo dumbbell and 30 feet of walking lunges, which is just over 9 meters. The first round was 3 burpees and 3 hang clean to overheads, and for each round you would add 3 reps to each. So round 2 would be 6 reps, round 3 would be 9 reps, and so on. The lunges stayed the same each round. As is often the case with CrossFit, it didn't look too hard at first glance, but as always, you get surprisingly tired surprisingly soon.
Nei, Jonas, du har ikke tid til å stå sånn! Kom igjen! 15 sekunder!
I managed to do 6 complete rounds, plus 21 burpees and 2 dumbbell hang cleans to overhead, for a total of 161 reps. That put me in the top 34% of all 50 to 54-year-olds who had signed up, just outside of the top third, I suppose. 1 week later, it was time for the second workout. 22 pull-ups, 42 double unders, 21 thrusters with 95 pounds or 43 kilos, 18 chest to bar pull-ups, 36 double unders and 18 thrusters with 115 pounds or 52 kilos. Finally, 15 bar muscle ups, 30 double unders and 15 thrusters with 135 pounds or 61 kilos. The time cap was 12 minutes, meaning that the result is either the time that you need to finish the workout or the number of reps you complete in 12 minutes. I knew I was going to have trouble with this one because of the pain in my arms. I decided to do most of the pull-ups and all of the chest to bars one at a time. It looks kind of silly, but I figured it would ease the strain on my arms. The double unders are hard too, because they're not only very taxing, but they're also pretty difficult. And messing up takes a lot of extra time and energy. And I messed up a lot. Even though I thought I'd gotten better at double unders this year, I guess it didn't help so much when I was already tired and a little stressed for time as well. So I struggled much more with the double unders than I had hoped. The thrusters were just exhausting, as always, but otherwise not too much of a problem. I ended up doing 21 pull-ups, 42 double unders, 21 thrusters with 43 kilos, 18 chest to bar pull-ups and 16 double unders, for a total of 118 reps. So that means I didn't even make it to the second set of thrusters. And as I expected, I didn't have to worry about those muscle ups at all, since I never got that far. The third workout was a long one. It even takes a long time to describe it. 4 time, 5 wall walks, 50 calories row, 5 wall walks, 25 deadlifts with 225 pounds or 102 kilos, 5 wall walks, 25 cleans with 135 pounds or 61 kilos, 5 wall walks, 25 snatches with 95 pounds, 43 kilos, 5 wall walks, and a 50 calorie row. All this with a time cap of 20 minutes, meaning the result is your time or the number of reps you finish in 20 minutes. I managed to do 147 reps, which was everything except the last 3 wall walks and the last 50 calorie row. So was the open a success for me? When I look at my results for the 3 workouts combined, I placed better this year than last year. Last year I was 98,458, and this year I was number 67,203. That's a significant improvement. Very cool. Huge success. Although, as I started thinking about it, who participated this year compared to last year? If I just compare myself to 52-year-olds this year and 51-year-olds last year, I went from 774th place to 554th. So that's an improvement, right? Well, maybe it is and maybe it isn't. I realized that there were fewer contestants this year, so while I placed better this year, I also outperformed fewer people. So in the 52-year-old group this year, I ended up being in the top 38%, while last year in the 51-year-old group, I ended up in the top 34%. So looking at it that way, my open this year is a complete failure. A debacle. Fiasco. Or what do you think? Then again, given the way I felt the last few months before the open, and the pain in my arms and back, just completing the open could be seen as a great achievement. Or great stupidity maybe, depending on whom you ask. Okay, so the results are still inconclusive when it comes to the fitness goals. I'm not sure whether I improved from last year. But at least I did some exercising, and that is better than not exercising. According to the scientists, exercise is a great way to boost your mood and your well-being. And better mood and well-being were my primary goals. But there are other things you can and should do as well in order to boost your happiness. I think I might have mentioned them. Some of the things that can make a real difference is how you sleep, what and how much you eat, the quality of your social life, and how much time you spend in nature. I've been trying to prioritize good sleep for some time, but I found it really hard to control the results. With training, Essentially, you can just decide to go train and then go train. You know, injuries aside, you can make yourself go work out. With sleep, even though I can decide to go to bed, deciding to go to sleep doesn't really work. My first step was simply to set an alarm in the evening and be strict with myself to go to bed at 10 o'clock every night to get a minimum of 8 hours of sleep. It turned out that it was not that simple. Basically, I ended up lying awake in bed a lot. I got myself a watch that measures my sleep quality with an uncertain level of accuracy, and it could seem that it's my stress levels that messes up my sleep. So how to fix that? Well, that's what I used the wine for, right? But in fact, the main reason I cut down on the wine in the first place was that alcohol messes with your sleep. Even though it might make it easier to fall asleep, the sleep quality is hampered by alcohol. At least that's what the scientists say. So next thing to try, I guess, is meditation. It's funny in a way. One thing that I do stress about is the feeling that I don't have enough time for all the things I feel I should do. And then the advice is to spend a large amount of it, time that is, sitting or lying down and thinking about nothing, essentially. But okay, science seems to back it, and I try to meditate. And sometimes I actually think it helps me fall asleep. Anyways, I try to facilitate good sleep, but I can't control it, and it's not going great. Other things that might help with health, stress, and sleep is nature and friends. I'm not great at being social. I'm not sure whether it's in my genes, my upbringing, or a result of my past experiences, but I tend to appreciate the peace and quiet of my own company. And nature is nice, but it stresses me out to think of all the things I won't get done when I spend my time in nature instead of doing something productive at home, like scrolling on my phone. But anyways, in the past year, I reconnected with my old buddy from Sweden, who used to be my roommate back when we both lived in Hawaii, a lifetime ago. We've gone on a couple of hikes together, and this April we went on a little skiing trip to the mountains. It was nice, although it might have ended up being a little harder than I had expected. In any case, we did 50 kilometers or a little over 30 miles of backcountry skiing in 2 days. We got loads of fresh air and lots of exercise as well. My friend is better trained for skiing than I am, probably better trained in general, but he was very considerate, even carried my much heavier backpack for much of the trek. After the excursion, I was exhausted and sore, but it was really nice to do something outdoors, in a beautiful landscape and with a good friend. And that's definitely something that I want to do more. Another thing that I've kept prioritizing is cooking real food, as in not ultra-processed food. I really try to limit the number of times I go for the quick and easy option of buying ready-made food for me and the kids, and instead I try to improve my cooking skills at the same time as I, hopefully, provide healthier food for all of us. It can actually be kind of fun to cook, even though it's a bit of work. And the home-cooked food tastes so much better than the ready-made stuff, at least in my opinion. I'm not completely sure whether the boys agree. I also try to become better at eating a more varied diet with more vegetables. I'm not great at it, but I am working on it. I guess it's another form of training in a way. One of many things that might contribute to better health. I hope. So what's my status? My fitness journey didn't go quite like I had hoped, at least not so far. My first instinct is to beat myself up over it. I didn't train right. I made the wrong training decisions. I procrastinated. I ate too much ice cream, and I didn't get a flat tummy. And all those things are probably true. But life isn't perfect, right? Most of us don't get everything right all the time, and I guess the only thing you can really do is to try your best. So my tendonitis made it hard to train for the CrossFit Open. But then again, doing well in the Open was never the real goal of this journey. The goal was to be happy by living right to the best of my abilities. And while the CrossFit Open could have been a great motivation to exercise, which could make me healthier and happier, in this case, I suspect that it made it harder for me to reach my real goals, to get healthier and happier. But on the other hand, if I hadn't done the Open, then I wouldn't have been able to do a video about having been in the Open, so who's to say if it was right or wrong? It is what it is. So why is it that we don't do the things we said we were going to do? Or do the things we said we weren't, like eating too much ice cream? Well, one important reason is that we're hardwired to avoid discomfort. So much so that it's hard to overcome by rational thinking alone. Whether it's the fear of getting tired or experiencing pain, or if it's being hungry or even just bored, it's sometimes really hard to do the right thing. But it helps to have a plan, and it helps to develop good habits. And that's what I'm trying to do, because I still want to be happy and healthy, and that means I must exercise, I need to eat well, I need to sleep as well as I can, and be social to the best of my abilities. And maybe spend some time in the wilderness every once in a while. Because even if we sometimes fail to do what we said we were going to do, that doesn't mean that we might as well give up. It just means that we get to try again tomorrow. Since I have some severe pain right now, I have to train carefully. Since it's spring, I also try to do a bit of gardening, which might give me some fresh air, although probably mixed with quite a bit of fresh car exhaust as well. Just kidding, kind of. I'll also continue working on my cooking skills, maybe even invite some friends over for dinner sometime. And this here that you're watching is the third video of this project, and I had planned this as a 3-part series. However, I don't think I'm done yet. I'm not satisfied with how it's gone so far or with the results. I could give up. It's always tempting to lie down on the couch and eat a large bowl of ice cream, but instead I'd like to try some more, to keep going even if it hasn't gone great so far. Therefore, I intend to make a 4th video where I can hopefully show off my 6-pack and tell you all the secrets to a happy life. Although you might not want to hold your breath on the 6-pack. We'll see how it goes.